WNST. Townder is, even though when the purple guys aren't playing, I'm still that NFL nerd that's still stuck building my whole weekend schedule around the likes of the Philadelphia Eagles and Matt Ryan. This guy does the same thing. This is his maiden voyage here at WNST.net. He is the NFL lead writer for FanSided, and I'm hoping I'm going to get the pronunciation of his name properly before the end of our first conversation. It is spelled Verderame, but I keep saying Verderame like a St. Louis Ram or a Los Angeles Ram. He is Matt Verderame, and you can find him out at FanSided as well as on Twitter out of the fighting second city of Chicago, Illinois. Matt, what's going on, man? Happy turn of the year here. I hope you're as enthusiastic as John Gruden was at his press conference.
It's hard to match John Gruden's enthusiasm, but I can't wait. I think the divisional round is really the best round of the entire NFL playoff.
Well, look, man, we've had no excitement around here at all. We've promoted from within to Wink Martindale. Our defensive coordinator's going off and retired. We're going to have the same coach, the same quarterback, the same everything here. And people here are antsy. And meanwhile, the antithesis of that is throwing Jack Del Rio off the side of the bus and saying we're going to shine this thing up and drive it into Vegas and give Gruden points in the deal. And I mean, if nothing else, the Raiders are going to be interesting. You know, they've hired Ric Flair to run their franchise.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the Raiders, the move makes sense from the standpoint of, look, like you just said, they're interesting, and that's what they want to be right before they go into Las Vegas. They need to be interesting. I don't think Jack Del Rio was quite that guy. They get a better coach in Gruden, and I don't even care about the $100 million. Look, Mark Davis can afford it. Go for it. It doesn't count against the cap. Doesn't hurt them. The interesting part to me is the 10 years. If that doesn't work, let's say after 3 years, even 4 years, what are they going to do? Buy Gruden out with $60 or $70 million remaining on his contract? That's a risky deal for a guy who, yes, he's good, but he hasn't coached in a decade, and he hasn't won a playoff game since he beat the Raiders back in Super Bowl 37.
But that's kind of the way to give him points, right? And for a guy who was making more money doing what we're doing right now than coaching, it's always a fascinating thing. Matt, I'm partners with Brian Billick here in Baltimore on behalf of the Living Classrooms Foundation, and Brian joins us all the time here, and we're sort of fast and famous friends, and I got a lot of friends in the coaching biz. Chuck Pagano was our first phone call when my wife was diagnosed with leukemia, and now this week he was rumored to be coming back here and now is going to take some time off. I've been friends with Jim Schwartz and Mike Nolan and Mike Smith and all these people that have been in and out of the game. Rex, who I see on ESPN every week, who did a weekly show here for a number of years. Look, man, for anybody that wants to do this and can make $8 or $9 million a year and sell himself off and whore himself out to any Hooters, any beer company, getting $150,000 to walk into a room and entertain people in the off season, and not to be beholden to coaching, right? And he was such a maniac. Do you love it? How much do you love it? For him to come back for not much of a pay raise, right? Like literally, we can talk about the money and points in the deal and how rich he'll become. Dude, you really have to have a taste for this. Jack was a dear friend of mine. We went out there and we swabbed 41 Raiders players about a year ago. I walked into that building. Dude, that building's depressing, man. Like if it sits at the foot of a runway, it's in an airplane hangar, it's a depressing place. For him to take that on and then go to Vegas with these aspirations and expectations, I really doff my cap because anyone else making more money to do less usually picks that over what he signed on to do here. So I do doff my cap. But I'm with you. Year 6, year 7, year 8. I sort of look at that as sort of PSL money, right? I sort of look at that as, well, if you're not going to give me points in the deal and I'm not going to become a billionaire out of this, sweeten the deal with 30 or 40 million on the back end of the deal, and I'll go back to doing Monday Night Football or whatever I'll do later on, and by then they'll be paying me $12 million a year to do that,
Yeah, look, I think for Gruden it came down to the fact that he's been out of the game for a while. He got that itch. I think he always maybe had it in his head. He talked about it in the press conference. He wanted to come back and wanted to be a Raider at some point again, and he didn't want to leave in the first place. Of course, he got traded to Tampa Bay. So, look, I think for him, he just said, you know what? It's a perfect situation. I'm getting paid a mint. I've got more job security at this point than any man in America. And so I'm going to go ahead, take the money. Hopefully it works out. He's got Derek Carr, who he believes, in his words, he can unlock the keys to his success. Hey, the Raiders, as you said earlier, and it's spot on, they are going to be interesting. That is going to be a very interesting division next year. You have Patrick Mahomes with the Chiefs. That's going to be interesting to watch. Then you've got Gruden and the Raiders. Denver, who knows what's going to happen with Elway there. Let's see if they bring in another quarterback. That's going to be a very intriguing division, and the Raiders are certainly going to be right at the top of that. I would imagine we're going to see them quite a bit in prime time next year.
Well, we talk about guys signing on for gigs and guys surviving, and Marvin Lewis has survived. John Harbaugh has survived here. Peyton is probably the case in point to say, don't break up the quarterback and the coach. Keep them together. You talk about guys at the top of their game as far as pay. When Peyton's not making the playoffs and he's the highest paid coach in the league, there were always raised eyebrows and all that. And now I look at all of these teams, and I see a real pathway that the New Orleans Saints can win the Super Bowl here 3-4 weeks from now. I'll be out in Minnesota broadcasting in 3 weeks. If you gave me $1 right now, I'm rooting for the Viking story. I got a lot of friends in Philadelphia, but I don't think they can really do it. I wouldn't be against Atlanta being sort of the resurrection story after what happened to them. I think there are good stories here everywhere. But if you're giving me $1 and saying which team is the best equipped right now to do this, might be the Saints.
I agree. I think they're the most balanced team in football. I felt, frankly, that they were the favorite in the NFC dating back to probably mid-October. I think, look, when you look at them, this is a team that finally can play defense. Saints haven't played defense in what feels like a decade, but they finally have some guys, and a big part of that was their draft. Marshawn Lattimore, already one of the better corners in the NFL. This game coming up this weekend against Minnesota is going to be, in my opinion, the best game of the playoffs. I think both of these teams, whoever wins, I believe is going to go to the Super Bowl. And it's weird to say that about a team with Case Keenum, the quarterback, but he's been terrific this year. So, for my money, look, if the Saints can go into Minnesota and win that game, there's a very good chance they're going to host the Falcons in the NFC title game. You have to like them there. The Vikings, of course, either would go to Philly or host Atlanta. And Philadelphia, without Carson Wentz, it's tough to see that happening. Nick Foles just simply has not played well. So, for me, the Saints are the team that I look at and say, if I'm New England or if I'm Pittsburgh, I don't want to see the Saints because I don't want to see Drew Brees, I don't want to see that running game, and I don't want to see Sean Payton. They've been there, they've done it.
Minnesota has the incredible thing that they could go to bed Saturday night if Atlanta wins, knowing that they would never have to leave. And we may never see that again, like literally, through the course of all these Super Bowls and all these places. And, even the weird Detroits and the Indianapolises to get one crack at it, Jacksonville's to get their, 1 year. Jerry will get another chance at it. Probably get 5 more chances. That depends how long he lives down in Dallas. But for Minnesota to have this opportunity, truly the once-in-a-lifetime thing here, I'm not a Case Keenum guy, but he came out of a tree and beat us a couple of years ago. But Matt Ryan does worry me, and I think this is the reason these quarterbacks make $25 million a year, and the reason that you wouldn't want Mariota to be your guy against Brady this week, or you certainly wouldn't want to be going anywhere with Blake Bortles, right? Going into Pittsburgh this week, you bet on the quarterback, and when it says Foles and it says Ryan, knowing the weather's not going to be the kind of factor it might have been last weekend in Philadelphia where it would have been 5 degrees, I think it's hard to not think that the Falcons have a legitimate chance here and that defense has grown up a little bit.
Anytime you look at a playoff matchup, sometimes even regular season, but especially the postseason, who's got the better quarterback, who's got the better coach, and then maybe factor in, if it's a tie, who's more experienced. And the Falcons certainly have the experience. And you could argue the coach, but I would take Dan Quinn. I would certainly take Matt Ryan over Nick Foles. So, yeah, I expect the Falcons to win. It's the first time ever that a number 1 seed is an underdog in the divisional round. So it goes to show just how much people are off the Philadelphia bandwagon. And I think for the Falcons, there's no question of motivation to get back. Right? After what happened last year, I think the Falcons will have nothing more than to get back and erase that memory, 28-3 and all those types of things. But, yeah, you look around the AFC playoffs, perfect example. Outside of the Ravens and Joe Flacco, it has been nothing but Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, and Tom Brady dating back to 2003. There's a reason for that. And that's why Blake Bortles and Marcus Mariota, they're going to go home. They're going to go home this weekend. And Blake Bortles is the real shame in all that because Jacksonville is legitimately good enough that if they had a competent quarterback, if they had a Carson Palmer type of that team could go to the Super Bowl. But it's not going to go with Blake Bortles throwing for less than 100 yards. And so if you've got that quarterback, you've got a real shot. And that's why Atlanta, despite being a 6 seed, absolutely could get back to the Super Bowl, even if it's a little bit of a long shot.
You know, I was making that argument earlier this week with Gary Myers about Jacksonville, that if, like, Eli Manning were the Jacksonville quarterback, they'd be 12-4 and really, really dangerous. But we are chatting with Matt Verderame. He's our first-time visitor here. He's out of FanSided. You can follow him out on Twitter as well under his name. That's Verderame. The E is silent. He's out at fansided.com out of Chicago, Illinois. This portion of our WNST programming brought to you by DNL Window Tinting. 26 years of tinting everything. Cars, boats, businesses. They put the shades on the sun and take away the squint. They're in Parkville and in White Marsh. Tell Jason and Athena and the group over there that we said hello. And I know next time the snow comes and the glare comes, you're going to say, hey, Nestor reminded me about DNL window tinting. I'm going to be like, yeah. Also going to tell you about Costas Inn. Good enough for the Today Show. And Hoda, newly promoted Hoda, who loves her crab cakes from Costas Inn. My mom loved the crab cakes at Costas Inn as well. Fat crabs, cold beer. The legend continues. And even some bands on the weekend nights down at Costas Inn and CostasInn.com. I'm dragging Mike Flynn down there a couple weeks when he comes into town as well, so we'll have some fun there. Matt Verderame is our guest. He's the NFL lead writer at FanSided out on the internet. Tell me about FanSided, Matt, real quick.
Sure. We cover all sports. We cover entertainment, a little bit of lifestyle. For me, I cover the NFL. As you mentioned, I'm the lead writer and editor over there. But it has a little bit of everything. If you come over, you're an NFL fan, you want picks and predictions, power rankings, or you want a long form, you want a column. I have a Stack in the Box column and a podcast go up every Monday. So really, there's something for everybody. We take pride in covering the whole league, not just a few teams like some websites do. So really, there legitimately is something for everybody, no matter what your fan and what your interest may be.
Cool. He's a FanSided. All right, so over to the AFC, not nearly as sexy to discuss, and maybe before I lead you into that Patriots-Steeler thing that, as I say around here, is a sort of like ISIS and Al-Qaeda. We have no real rooting interest. I find it hard to ever root for the Patriots at this point, even against the Steelers. Bless my purple heart. But there's some thoughts about the Ravens and where they are right now, Matt. I mean, you cover the league on the whole. Certainly a lot of changes and a lot of turmoil in a lot of places and some glitz and glamour in some places. Chicago going in their direction now as well, Indianapolis. But for the Ravens, they've stayed the course here as they've always sort of done amidst a time when a 4th and 12 went over their head. They lost another tough game in Pittsburgh that other coaches not named Harbaugh or administrators named Newsom will be looking over their shoulder. That's not the way it works in Owings Mills.
Yeah, well, and you know what? I think while sometimes fans get annoyed at what is perceived as complacency with, well, Harbaugh had made the playoffs in a few years, and Newsom, well, what's going on there? Maybe he didn't manage the cap as well as he should have. And that might be true, but, Ozzie Newsom and John Harbaugh, that's a good combo to have at the top of your organization. So I think the Ravens fans should be happy with that. Look, it's all about getting better offensively for the Ravens. There's no question. Dean Pease retires on the defensive side. I think promoting from within was the right decision. They're good defensively. You have no issues there. It's simply about getting better on that offensive side. Maybe you cut Jeremy Maclin this offseason. Rashad Perriman, maybe it's time to start kind of moving on from that situation. It simply hasn't worked out to this point. I think you've got to go out and really revamp the weapons around Flacco. We know that Flacco has struggled the last couple of years. There's no question. It's a horrible contract. Unfortunately for the Ravens, it was just a matter of timing. They had to pay him after the Super Bowl win. But to maximize his potential, they've got to be able to run the ball, which they can with Alex Collins, but they've got to get him some guys to throw the ball to. Luckily, there are some good receivers coming out in free agency, pretty strong draft class for that. If I'm Baltimore, that's what I'm focusing on the most because, frankly, it's the most obvious weakness of the team.
I tell you what, in these games this weekend, we see the difference between where they are and where we want to be, and I would say that for everyone, for the Patriots and the Steelers here. the Steelers are all about the weapons and all about the health of Brown, the health of Bell, and really the health of all three of those guys who haven't been able to stay on the field long enough to play 4 quarters against New England. Certainly the loss a couple of weeks ago sets the tone that it's going to be in Foxborough. And I think everyone portrays this weekend as sort of the JV, and I'll go along with that. I would find it miraculous if Blake Bortles can survive Pittsburgh a second time around, or that Big Ben throws 5 picks, or that Brady's going to trip over himself, or somehow Mariota's going to come in and walk on water with a cast that, quite frankly, had they not gotten it done the other day, there would have been a new coach in Nashville. So, I don't see the Titans as being particularly loaded here. It's sort of a weird weekend. It does feel like a JV fight here.
Yeah, it really does. Normally you don't have a weekend where both games in the conference feel kind of like a waste of time, but in reality, it does feel like that in the AFC. I don't think Tennessee can win at all. I give them no chance to win that game. If the Titans were to win, it'd be one of the biggest upsets of my lifetime. I can't imagine any scenario where the Titans are going to win. I mean, to be frank, they shouldn't have won in Kansas City, except for a pretty fluky play and the Chiefs doing what they always do and finding some horrific way to lose a playoff game at home. But give them credit, they move on, but this is where that's going to end. As far as Jacksonville and Pittsburgh goes, the only hope, if you're a Jacksonville fan, is that is a great defense. And that is legitimately the type of defense that they can play man-to-man, they can cover Pittsburgh. The question becomes in that game, can they stop Le'Veon Bell? Because they're not great against the run, and if Bell gets going, then you've got real problems. The other side of it is, can Bortles not throw you out of the game? Because he's not going to get away with throwing for, I think it was 95 yards the first time they played each other, because Roethlisberger's not going to throw 5 picks. So he's going to have to throw the ball and make some plays. And if he can't do that, then it's going to be Pittsburgh and New England, I think, like all of us expect it to be.
Oh, sad times ahead. Matt Verderame joining us here from FanSided. He's the NFL lead writer out there in general. Off-season here, any thoughts to sort of big picture issues? We got real problems here selling tickets in Baltimore, right? And there's only a couple of places where we haven't seen empty seats. Boy, this is going to be fascinating, from moving, fan bases in San Diego and L.A. and everything that they've done here in the offseason. What is a catch and how they can figure that out. Boy, on the backside of this Super Bowl, and it's still a nice little tournament. We got nice teams here, and there's going to be storylines and heroes emerging, and, someone, and it might even be the Vikings, dancing on home carpet in Minnesota. Wouldn't that be a story? But, the league's got a lot of work to do here in the offseason, and 24 teams are already hard at work on all of that. But here in Baltimore, it feels like the problems are even deeper with the fan base.
Yeah, I think it depends what city you're in and how you look at it. I know some people are going to point to the anthem protest, and certainly, that's had a factor this year. But for my money, I don't think nationally that's the biggest reason for some of the issues in terms of attendance and ratings. I think part of it is the rating thing. I think is overblown because they just haven't simply caught up to the fact that a lot of people watch the game by streaming it. More people than ever go to bars watch the games. I think part of the drop off in ratings is simply that people are taking it in different ways. However, in the stands, I think the problem is that they need to make the actual game day experience better, because it has gotten so good watching the NFL on television that it really, you're better off sitting at home watching the games and not spending $100 on a ticket, $40 to park, and $10 on a beer. I think that's the issue that the NFL has to figure out, because the experience from home right now trumps the one at the stadium. And as far as the cat stuff, that to me, that has to be the number one issue this offseason in terms of when they sit down and they look at the rules, they have got to figure this out. I can't believe we're to a point where nobody can figure out what a catch is. I mean, real. If the ball's in his hands and he's got 2 feet down, he caught it. I don't understand how.
I heard someone say, we've had the forward pass in football for almost a century, and you're telling me we're now trying to figure this out. I mean, part of it really is that the instant replay is so good and the camera angles are so good that, the naked eye is no longer, it's an optical illusion to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, to me, look, if some guy catches the ball along the sideline, he gets both feet in, the ball's in his hands, and as he's going down, there's a little bobble. Unless the ball hits the ground, he caught it. The ball's caught. I mean, let's look. One of the more perplexing calls I've ever seen in my life was in Kansas City last week, and when Jeff Tripper ruled that Marcus Mariota was down because of forward progress when he fumbled the ball and Derek Johnson hit him. I mean, Marcus Mariota was just standing there, and they ruled it forward progress. And that's one of those things you never see called, and you wonder, well, how could that be? You know, they review everything, and then that's not reviewed. I think at this point, they just need to simplify the rules really across the board, but it starts with the catch rule. The catch rule has gotten to a point where nobody understands it. Players and coaches don't understand it. There was a mic'd up official a couple of weeks ago who was talking to a coach. I forget who exactly it was, and he said, I don't know what a catch is anymore. Well, if the official doesn't know, that's a problem. So I think the NFL's really got to do a better job with that. It's become way too much of a hindrance in the game.
Well, when Tony Romo can't explain it to you, and then they go to the studio and Boomer Esiason and Phil Simms can't. You know what I mean? Like, if those people can't explain it, no one's going to be able to explain it properly, or certainly not well enough for the audience to look at it and find some credibility in it.
Yeah, to me, it's taken on a life of its own, because we've gotten to the point now where, well, you've got to catch the ball and you've got to survive the ground. Well, if you bobble the ball a little bit, it can hit the ground, but only if it's in your hands tight enough that it doesn't move all that much. Look, it simply should be what it was in the 90s, in the early 2000s. If you catch the ball, if you're in possession, you have 2 feet down, and you get hit and lose the ball, it's a fumble. I don't understand how this is so hard to figure out. Yeah, you're going to see more fumbles in the game because less things are going to be called incomplete, but so be it. I mean, we also are to a point here where guys have gloves that are basically like fly paper, so they should be able to hold on to it a little bit better than they were maybe 25 years ago. I think it's all about simplifying what we're looking at, because right now we have no simplification. It's the most convoluted thing to call what is or what is not a catch, and that's ridiculous. Catching the ball is pretty simple. If you did it outside with your son or your daughter, you're throwing a ball around, you'd know if they caught it.
Tell you what, we're going to be in Minnesota in a couple of weeks. I know we're going to be cold. We will not be playing golf of any kind. Who's going to be there, Matt Verderame?
I think the Saints and the Patriots will be there. I think those two teams are the best equipped to show up at Super Bowl 52.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to hold you to that, man. We'll send everybody out to follow you out on Twitter. He is Matt Verderame. That's Verderame, out at FanSided. He is the NFL lead writer. Great visit with you, man. Take care of yourself out there. Stay warm in Chicago.
Thanks, Nestor. Appreciate
You got it. Matt Verderame joining us here. You can find me out in the Toyota.com audio vaults 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere you are, right on your phone or mobile device. The morning newspaper ships digitally and free of charge to your email inbox each and every morning. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. They sponsor our morning newspaper, and they'll also get you into their clubs for just $10 a month. Never any commitment, $1 down. Bring it on. Planet Fitness 2018. There's one right around the corner from you. Get some inspiration at planetoftriumphs.com. It has been 5 years since I discovered those char-grilled oysters down there in New Orleans, and we had our little march for about 10,000 people up Poitras. Every day for the next 24 days at WNST.net, I am releasing a chapter of Purple Rain 2. It's been 5 years, chapter a day every day between now and Super Bowl 52, when we expect Ray Lewis to go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We're running some bus trips out there if you want to get involved with our Pro Football bus trip out to Canton into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, as well as some other fun things we're planning. Throw me an email, nasty@WNST.net. I'll also be bragging about that out on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Snapchat and Instagram, where we also stream out on Facebook Live and our YouTube WNSTV channel. If there's any breaking news at all, other than the Ravens promoting Wink Martindale from within, you got that on Tuesday afternoon here. You'll get it first on the WNST text service when they deal Manny Machado at the warehouse. That's a joke. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard, where they don't joke around. And certainly, Dennis will be all business and serious here on Thursday from 3 until 5, driving you home. It is the SSV on WNST, getting you ready for more playoff football. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.